Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning. It is Wednesday, February 17th, and that means it is time for Beadshop Live. And we have a great show for you guys today. We are doing our quintessential project, which is called Color Study. It looks like there's a bunch of people here, which is awesome. I'm glad that everyone is here and jumping in. I am going to unmute Janice. So from the West Coast to the East Coast, how are you doing, JP?
I'm doing great, Katie. I'm excited about today. This is one of my favorite projects.
Me
Um,
too. Let's put us up on the
and,
screen here.
yeah, and
Here
topics
we
of
are.
discussion, which is color.
Yes, it's going to be so much fun. You've got your coffee. I've got my coffee right here. We wanted to say hello to everyone out there. People are jumping on. And we also wanted to acknowledge the weather has been so crazy with everybody. Have you had any snow on your side of the country, JP?
We have, but my heart goes out to Texas. I mean, I know there's probably a song called that, but I really, who lives in Texas is Carter.
Yeah, I just
And
saw a Facebook post from her today. They have no
it,
power in Houston.
and her daughter and husband and new baby are in Austin.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste her cell phone stuff, but if anyone knows Carter in East Wells and Houston, will you tell her we're sending our love? And
Yes, I actually we can Facebook message her
okay, are you
because
putting
I
on your
saw it.
lotion
I
too?
am. I'm putting on my lotion. This is my lotion that came all the way across the miles from Gita in Denmark. I have my
Oh
Denmark
wow!
lotion right here in my little drawer, so I'm ready to go. But yeah, it's just crazy. So we're keeping all of you guys in our thoughts. You know, the weather,
Yeah,
weather plus pandemic, plus cold. It's a lot to handle. So
yeah,
everybody stay safe. But it is the perfect time to stay in and bead, which is great. Unfortunately, a few. We've had a few shipping delays and stuff like that due to
hmm,
the weather, but hopefully by the end of the week and into the beginning of next week, the weather will right itself again and systems will be running. So,
hmm,
so that's that story. So, with your color study today, Janice, I want to talk to a
hmm.
little bit about the history of the color study. I thought since we were doing color, I would wear black and white. It looks like we coordinated again, which is great. I have one of
Pearls.
yes, pearls,
Hmm.
and I have one of Grand's. I don't know if you remember these from when your mom had her antique store, but these
Hmm.
old 1960s enamel pins. Grand just
Yes,
loved these, and she
yes.
would buy these at. Grand never met a garage sale she didn't like, so.
Sing it,
Um,
sister. What
so
was that
yeah.
that show where the with her last name was Hall, the blonde hair, and the doors would open and there were daisies painted on them, and it was a, a comedy show on TV.
Oh, like
In
Laughing?
this,
No.
yes, no, no,
Yes. No.
was that the one where the doors would open and someone would pop out?
I think so. Oh no, Rowan and Martin. Yeah, Laughing. Right.
Yeah, yeah, and there
Right.
were
Yeah.
daisies. I think that's where the
Yeah.
daisy craze
Yes.
of the 60s came from was
It came. Yeah. My mom had, a white convertible with daisies on it. That is a true story.
well, I have to just tell you everybody a little bit, sorry about the lipstick, but a little bit about the cactus cup.
Oh.
So when we had the shop in Palo Alto, the staff would put a cactus, just a little cactus plant. If I came in like in a mood, like, oh, Janice is prickly today, they would put a cactus on the shelf, not so anyone could hurt themselves, but on the shelf behind the counter. So the afternoon staff coming in would know, watch out, Janice is prickly today. Do you
Right.
know it took like 10 years for someone to tell me about the cactus.
About the cactus. So is that why you have the cup today?
Yeah, so I won't be prickly.
So you'll be prickly. Perfect. I love it. Well, from the day glow daisies to the cactus,
Right.
all of that. But yes, that was, people are saying it was Laugh-In. That was
Laughing, yes.
that was it, Rowan and Martin. And we did that was where Joanne Worley, I don't know where I got that name from, but that's where she got her start, I think. Anyway, we're dating ourselves. Though I was very, very little when I watched Laugh-In, and that's a true story. Okay, so speaking of color, then.
Yes.
Oh, look at Janice. Everyone's so nice. Mel says, "You're never prickly, JP." And Jerry says, "Janice, I can't imagine you prickly." Okay.
Oh, well, come work at Beadshop.
No,
And once in a while, I do have my prickly side. But
I do too.
it's never intended in a mean way. It's always it's always like with the best intentions.
Yeah, well, we were always striving for our best. Yeah.
And customers coming first and wanting like orders to go out and everything to be right. And it's not, I'll just leave it at that.
No, I'm with you. I don't even have a cactus cup. I think that people have a texting system. Oh yeah, Kate. Yeah, don't talk to Kate this morning. Really, just don't talk to her. No, I know. Well, let's take a look. Is my mom on here? Ma, you want to chime in on that? Let me share with you guys a screenshot of Janice's beautiful color study that we're going to talk about today. Now, this is from the website, one of Karen's really beautiful photos, right, that she did. And we call these a project map when we lay them out on the website. And this project is called Dandelion Wishes is what it's called. And it's under our color study section in the bracelet section. So the cool thing about the project maps that Karen takes is you can see all of the different wraps laid out, so you can kind of follow it or kind of create your own design. And it looks like Geeta is asking, sure, Geeta, if you have time for YouTube, that would be awesome to do a little bit of moderating. Of course, our Geeta her flying fingers are linking here and there. So if you can link on YouTube, that would be amazing. So we thank you for that, of course, as always. So Janice, let's talk a little bit. I'm going to leave this project up here just for the moment.
Okay.
And you can talk a little bit maybe about the color story and stuff, and then I'm going to switch it over in a little bit to the actual piece.
Well, the original project, which we can look at the handout and talk about, was focused on working with color. And we did it at a time when there really was no ladder bracelet footprint. This was just at the beginning of the whole craze. No one had really laddered with, different kinds of tiles. And at the time we sold a bead called Chex, CHEXX. And I was inspired by the Picasso turquoise, the 4514 in 6/0 and 8/0. It's the Picasso sea green, matte sea green, which is still like one of my very favorite beads. Yeah, and then we've done lots of iterations over the years for color study. We've even done more videos on it, and we have episode notes. We have a handout, the original handout, which is linked on this project. And then on other samples, you'll also see a link to episode notes, which were response when we've done it on other samples. But this one was, we were talking about the Pantone colors for 20 21, which is a soft gray and a very soft yellow.
Mhm.
And they're really not colors that I would put together. Like as, okay, I want to sit down and make something in gray and yellow, but I
Right.
found it challenging. And then as soon as I added the silver and then I added the pale yellow and the very pale blue, it suddenly all made sense to me. And so
Mhm.
that's how this one was born. And I named it Dandelion Wishes because in the summer, when I was a child, I remember the yellow, bright yellow dandelions right around, I think, my birthday in May. And then I
Mhm.
remember that they would turn into those fluffy white balls that you could blow on. And
Mhm.
and I would make wishes by
Mhm.
August on them. And so this does make sense to me. I don't really know why, because it just came. It's something that I can't tell you why it works.
Mhm.
It's I should, but I really can't. It's got bright yellow, it's got dark gray, it's got light gray, but somehow adding some of that lightness and
Mhm.
darkness of all the different shades, and then putting the green of the leather also
Mhm.
kind of cooled the yellow down and became a bridge between the bright yellow and the dark charcoal.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, I think that what I really love about this, especially you were talking about adding the blue in, Janice,
mhm.
these are laddered with the delicas right there,
Yeah.
right? And so though you all have, the Pantone colors of the year were a very kind of vivid yellow and kind of a really vivid kind of a gray. They were very,
Mhm.
they're very, what do I want to say? I guess vivid or very,
Mhm.
it's they make it get very kind of a graphic kind of a pattern to them when you use
Mhm.
them. So taking your inspiration and toning down that yellow a little bit,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then adding that blue, the blue and the yellow, um, I think play off very nicely with each other. That dark gray is a beautiful background, so you can really see the pattern of this. And then
Mhm.
you also use, like you said, you've got some tones in here. So you've got this light yellow, and then you've got the Ceylon that you used
Mhm.
here, which
Mhm.
also looks
Mhm.
great. So I think that mixing and matching the different color tones of this, and this section here also, I think is particularly beautiful.
Thank you. I love that new matte labradorite tile, the one
Yeah,
that's matted silver on one side, and if you turn it over, Kate, it's white on the
it's
other.
the white. Yeah, and we have it
Oh,
also
it's
in a half tile.
yep, and a
Let's see,
Levenot.
and an 11-aught, and it's such an unusual. When I saw it, I used the bead in one of my mini mixes, and I just loved it. And I'm so glad that everyone else loves it because I think it's so unusual.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool, and I
Don't
love the
we
way
have it
you
in,
laddered.
Kate? Don't we have it
Uh-huh.
in 8/0 too?
We have it in the
I
8-aught
think
as
we,
well.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and it's in the section under, it's in new arrivals, I want to say.
yeah,
If you scroll
and
down
it's like
a bit,
it's
it's
half
11
of the
dash
Labrador.
4558. We have it in a half tile, a tile, the 8 and 11. It didn't come, I don't think, in a 6.
And a 6, I don't think so
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
And then this yellow that you used, it's the marigold in the regular Ceylon and then the olive also in the regular Ceylon. You
Mm-hmm,
could scale it down if you wanted and go with fine if you wanted
mm-hmm,
to. You also used in the super duos, we're having such a super duo moment here at Beadshop. These are the lemon matte Rembrandt. All of the Rembrandts, I was looking, we just got some in. The cobalt matte Rembrandt is also delightful. So if you wanted to add some blue, some more blue into this, but maybe
mm-hmm.
a darker blue rather than a lighter, that would also be, I think, a beautiful bead to use as well.
Well, this one was a perfect marriage between gray and yellow. It just,
Mhm.
it couldn't have been more perfect. It just,
Yeah, it's really good.
yeah, yeah.
And so this is an 8 wrap. Is that right, Janice? This one?
It depends on your wrist. I
Mhm.
just couldn't stop. I just kept going and going. And then when I got to texting you, do I
Right.
have to put the chain in?
And then
I
I
just,
said
it's
yes.
not like I didn't want to put the chain in, but I
Right.
realized I was getting too long. It
Right.
was no longer a 5 wrap. I was getting up on 7 to 8 wraps, depending
Mhm.
on your wrist size.
Mhm.
Um, it's definitely coffee table material,
Yeah, no, it's right. It's beautiful. So you
but
started
it's
here on this end.
comfortable. It's
Yeah,
comfortable.
it's
It's,
really
yeah,
gorgeous. And then you just went through and you then continued with a macrame,
right.
right,
Yeah,
with the 8 aughts on the outside. Then here comes that section that has the bugles and the tilas, those Labrador tilas you
right.
can see the front and the back or the back and the front. Then continuing on, I really like how you chose delicas to go with these because it's very it has the round Rocal seed beads, regular 11s, are a little rounder, right? And the Delica is
Mm-hmm.
like a tube.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a little more of a slim profile, which I like very much, that matches kind of the wrap. And you can see that slim profile if I turn the wrap bracelet
Mm-hmm.
to the side, how there's not a lot going, to the top and the
Right.
bottom. Then continuing on, and what you used were these Pony Express beads. We're getting more of these in, again, with the weather and with the pandemic. These are coming. They're being plated, but plating is taking a little longer than we thought. So you can also, and I'm going to show you, we put in these roller beads as an alternate. This is the antique silver roller. It has plenty of room. And I really like the way this looks as well. So you could substitute
Yeah.
those or any rollers you'd like for these, any
Mm-hmm.
large old beads. So we will have these in. So put yourself on the notification list if you want some of those guys when we get them in. And then here's that really great pattern. And that patterning is really fun. This would make just a beautiful wrap just on its own. And I think that's the beauty of the color study. You see here, you went in and you repeated that motif.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's when you called me and texted me and said, "What about the chain?" And I said, "Yep, get that wheat chain in there, Parsons."
Mm-hmm.
And so you added the wheat. And then you ended it like you started it, which was
Right.
this one here. And so I think the beauty of this color study or any of the large wrap bracelets that we make is that each section could be a bracelet on its own,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
once you string it all together, it really tells a beautiful story. I'm going to come in and
Thank
see.
you.
I've got a couple more here of the different wraps, and then we're going to look. I'm wrapping around my wrist as we speak here, so give me one moment. I know that my wrist is about 6.5 inches, so and it looks like it wraps around. You made it fit me just perfectly, Janice.
Oh, good.
I'm going to get my arm back in here. So this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wrap.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see there's the button there as well. And you can see I can get my finger underneath in here. And the
Yeah.
more wraps that you make, right, or the more wraps that a bracelet has, the looser it needs to be so it's
Mm-hmm.
comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks really nice on.
Thank you. I enjoyed, I road test everything a little bit to make sure it's going to work, and I found it very comfortable.
Yeah, it's
Um,
really nice.
yeah. So, and if we have time to talk about the pattern at all after we work on the section today,
Mhm.
or if you look in the project map, you'll notice that one of the things I've learned to do is that if I like a section,
Mhm.
I like to repeat it. Why?
Mhm.
Why? You know, wrap my brain trying to do something, new and different. Just
Mhm.
um, so the section of the labradorite you mentioned that I
Mhm.
started, I did that. I repeated that again. Like I worked it out once. Why not use it again?
Right, and you can see I put the project map up, but I'll also show
Yeah,
that long one. Let me actually
yeah.
show it right here so it's out. Let me take this off here. So you can see the camera's pulled back a little bit so you can see it. So here's this section, and you can see
Hmm.
if you started on this side, and then you repeated here, put that
Hmm.
color section in, that's the center, and then you
Hmm.
just flipped it and repeated it there.
Exactly. So if you find something you like and you want to
Mhm.
create more length, you go until you go, okay, this is a nice halfway point. And
Mhm.
then all you do is you just flip it. Now, there are going to be some rows where I might have put 4 beads instead of 3, or I might have left a row out or something. But there's no one coming up to your bracelet, with
No.
a microscope going, oh, you added an extra bead.
Mhm.
Um, uh, so I just, I find a section, I wrap it around as I go. I see where I want something to land, but it's never perfectly, where,
Right.
okay, this has got to be on the other side of that. I try to do things in lengths of one wrap. So
Mhm.
about 7 inches. So if you
Mhm.
were to measure from the middle of the button to about where the Pony Express is, that should be about one wrap.
Mhm.
And then that's all I did is I was just, but that doesn't mean you have to do everything in one wrap lengths. You can do
Right.
it shorter. You can go longer. This
Yeah.
the chain is longer than 7 inches. I
Mhm. So
just
it
said,
wraps a little further.
yeah, I just said I might as well use up all the chain I have.
Yeah. Well, let me show you.
Why
This is
waste
the
any?
color. This is the color study that I did a while back, and I did it with the Tylas as well. And that's also showing this short
Oh,
section. So this beginning section here is short. If it goes to the center of the button, it's about 3.5 because I wanted that to kind of land in the middle of the wrist. Pardon me. And then I kind of went on from there. There's the chain. I also use those bugles with those 11-aught metal seed beads. And you can see the difference. I used fine weight, and I want to compare and show you guys how the fine weight looks versus the regular Ceylon. You can see the profile's a little bit different. This has 11-aughts along the outside, and that has 8-aughts along the outside there. Okay.
and
And I
you
think I
used one
used,
of my favorite tiles, the 2064, that
yeah, I
beautiful
love it.
green.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
I
just
love it.
pretty. I just want to dive in.
And I think I used a 1 millimeter leather for this
Hmm.
rather
I can
than
check.
the 1 point. I think it's the 1 millimeter. I mean, it looks it rather than the, I think I used 1 millimeter distressed gray.
You used 1 millimeter distressed gray, but it looks like it, maybe this is incorrect, but you used regular Ceylon and gunmetal. Do you think you use the fine, or is it just thinner
Mm,
leather that makes the difference? It looks
I
like you
think
also used regular.
I
No?
think right there it's fine. I think.
Really?
I think so. I don't know. If the project notes say regular, it could
Yeah.
be.
I think it's the thinner leather that is.
That maybe
uh,
makes it smaller. That could
and then
be. Yeah.
also sometimes there's a difference in thickness, even in just one Ceylon color from the other.
Right. The other, depending on the
Yeah.
batch. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can see here, I just laddered the little cubes at the end here as well. So you can really just kind of go for whatever, whatever floats your boat on that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I put in a couple of the, let me add this other overlay here. Bear with me here just a second. I put in, I think this is the first part from the handout, and the
Mm-hmm.
handout can download on the project page. This is the original one, and this is where you're
Mm-hmm.
using those checks beads.
Right,
You
right.
can see there. But what you did when you originally did this piece, Janice, I think you released this in 4 different parts, didn't you?
Yes, we did it. We did it over a series of like a month.
Mhm.
Um,
And so this is broken down into the 4 different parts that you focused on. So here's part 1, when you add the button, part 2, and then this one is the part 3. And you actually used tough cord on this first one.
I did. I did. I'm not sure we had.
The
I'm not sure
Ceylon.
we had Ceylon
Mhm.
at the time. It might have been just tough cord. And tough cord is nice, but it's actually aptly named. It's getting tougher to get.
Yeah.
The factory that makes it is just a family business, and they're cutting out colors like charcoal. Our favorite is being discontinued. So
Yeah.
um, it's a sad day when we're not able to get tough cord anymore.
Yeah. Well, here I also wanted to show, before we get into the demo portion, we're going to actually show how the chain portion goes together, because I know that's something that the question we get most often is, great, color study is awesome, but can we go over the chain one more time? So that's what we'll do. We'll go over the chain, but I want to show you guys, we've got some new Checkmates tiles in that we really love. They come in, depending on where they come from, they either come in a long strand or a shorter 6-inch strand. These are all the shorter 6-inchers. And these are all in our just-ins or under our Checkmates tiles category. This one is a gray brown is what it's called, and it just kind of has that. That's really what it is, exactly, a gray brown. This one is the bronze, which I've never met a bronze bead I didn't like. This one is purple, straight on purple. It looks like a pearlized or a metallic. Then these are shiny. I love this red. This one is called red coral, really a bright, bright red. This one is Persian turquoise. Again, these are no coatings, just the glass. These are coated, these 3 over here. This yellow I really like. This is called sunflower yellow. Also very
It's just
bright.
so happy. Yeah.
Super happy. And then this one is, last but not least, the Opaque Olive. Again, I never met an olive bead I didn't like. And so you can see those colorways. They're very, very pretty. And they look great. I like all of these colors very much. So those are new. We've added some new ones here. And you could choose a colorway based off of any of these.
Now, Kate, the sunflower wasn't available to me when I did the bracelet. And I also think it's maybe a little tangerine for what we did, but it could be used, and you could tell a color story that was different. Yeah, I use the charcoal.
Just by changing maybe that yellow to a different yellow, because I think that there's a case for building the bridge and adding this guy in. You would have to maybe tone up the blue and the yellow that you were using. But it's a really cool color. It's really super bright. I think it looks great with this section. And with this section here.
Yeah, looks great.
and the chain section, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really great, really great. So let's take a look at the chain for this one. I've got a board set up for you guys here. I'm going to scoot over a little bit so I'm smack dab in the center of this board, and we will talk about laddering chain. Now, laddering chain, you can ladder different types of chain, right? There's all kinds of styles that you can ladder, but this wheat chain is really great in that it's almost like laddering with a super duo, one of which I have a little wayward super duo in that corner. I'll just let it go. But if we look at it very closely, and I set this up earlier today, you can see, let me get a little tighter so you can actually see it. Here is, let me scoot this over. There we go. You can see I've got it attached to the board with one of the clampers. I've got the mandala button here. I just chose a mandala button, and I think I grabbed out of the scrap bin some 1.5 millimeter antique brown leather. And then I just attached it to my board. And then I used thread that you'll be able to see. So I used the denim KO for this, and we're going to do the infinity stitch. So what I did was I started by just macrameing the top with a double strand of the KO. And you can see my needle is attached here. And so now I can come in, I've glued my last 3 stitches or 4 stitches maybe. I added a little bit of GS Hypo, which is right here. And I added a little bit just there, and I macrameed over the top, and then added just a little bit of GS there. So now this is ready. I can either thread burn it or clip it, and I'm just going to clip that end.
Could you also, well, what I did, what I did in my project, could you just grab it for a second, Kate? Where the yellow, the marigold thread is, where the macrame ended. What I used was the big eye needle, and I took the ends and I went back up with the big eye needle up through the silver bead to hide the threads.
Oh, I see.
So I didn't clip them. I just went and I put them on a big eye needle and went up through the bead.
Through there, through that large one.
Yeah, so that's what Allie has taught us.
Right, to go back underneath this macrame. So what you could do, though, when you're starting this, if you're just doing like this, the beginning macrame, doing that little bit of a glue and a little bit, that's also an easy way to do it. Or, as I say, I could put that end, I could put through some needles and pass it back up through that macrame piece.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the chain, let's take a close look at this wheat chain. The wheat chain is made out of links that they're not quite crossed over, but can you see that little link there, how it's kind of like an oval, but it's an oval that has a little bit of a twist. So if I hold my chain straight, you can see how all of those little links, you can see the one I have the pin through and the ones that are lining up below it, all kind of slant down to the left and up to the right, right? So when we're laddering, you have to be consistent about where you're going to put your needle. This pin's a little too thick. So as I'm laddering, and you'll see when I make the stitches, get that there, you want to go straight across. You want to treat it like it's a 2-hole bead. So where you put the thread in from the left and go to the right, and then you infinity stitch it back and go from the right back to the left. You want to go through the same spot, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
And so you can see if I bring my needle down then to the next place, if it goes here, I'll leave that pin in and I'll go to the next one. I'm going to actually lay this down so you guys can see the thread path. And then I'll go ahead and there we go. So there's 3 of them there, and I'm going to get nice and close so you can see them. So that's the when you take your needle back and forth, that's kind of the pass that you make, and you can see you're kind of going towards the bottom where that length slants over to the left, if that makes sense. So let's get this started. Now, what you did, Janice, on yours, and I'll show this, that has a little A-dot bead in there. Mm-hmm. So when you're starting with your laddering, do you recommend putting that A-dot, or do you think that the slant of this chain is enough?
I think it's just a personal choice. I think the slant of the chain is enough. What did I do on the other side of the chain? Just out of curiosity.
Side, it kind of has it kind of goes, and then it goes to that single bead there.
Okay.
And then you ladder it up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could add an A-dot if you wanted, or see how when I pull my chain apart, or my leather apart, if I were to bring my chain, underneath it, you can see that see how that just kind of pops in there?
It's a really nice fit. It's a nice fit.
So you don't have to start with a bead, but you certainly could if you wanted. Okay. So I'm just going to jump in and start my laddering. I'm going to ladder from my left. I'm going to raise the camera just a little bit, but I'm going to try and get it in there so you guys can see. I'm going to start from the left and go to the right, and we're going to infinity. I have my needle here, and I'm just going to bring my needle down, go through that top piece of chain, pull my thread all the way through, and see how I went over that side of the cord, under this side. So now I'm going to come back. I'm going over the leather cord on the right-hand side, through the chain, catching it on everything. The first one is always a little bit of a bear, so you just have to be the boss of all of this. Let me slide it up, pull it through tightly. There we go. And once you have everything established, and you can see how I've kind of flattened it out, I make sure that that first little link of chain is right. I'm going to dip this needle under the left-hand side. Now, Janice, do you recommend, I do. I like going through the top
twice
portion twice.
Yeah.
Just to get everything nice and stabilized, right? So I'm going to follow that same thread path one more time. So I'm pushing it out.
Stabilized is a good word, Kate, because but what you want to do is you want to make sure you leave a bit of air, because chain is a metal that bends differently than thread and beads. So you want to leave a little air, and you don't want it like super, super tight.
Right, see, there's that little triangle of air that's right up there.
Yeah. And that first one, you only have the link to go through. You're not really going through anything but that one link, because you're capturing the top of the loop. Yeah.
So now I'll pop the thread underneath on the left side. Now I'm ready to jump down to my next chain link. So if I'm following the pattern of what I'm doing, I'm coming in, I'm looking at the chain, and I can see
There
that
you
it
go.
looks like this is, I'm going to get right tight there. You kind of almost look for the X that the chain makes. The thing about laddering this chain is you want to capture every segment, right? You don't want to skip a segment so it's loose. And you want to make sure that if your thread path goes from the left to the right and then under your leather like I'm doing now, you want to make sure that everything then goes back from the right to the left in the same path. Where did that come out? There it is. It's kind of hard to see with the camera, but I could feel it with the needle. I could feel that something was impeding my progress, so I knew I wasn't on the right thread path. There you go. So
and
there's my next.
if you end up using thread the color of the leather, then the stitches are not as obvious as this.
No. And that's why I wanted to really show you with a contrasting thread. Okay, so let's get in even a little. Let me do that there. So now coming from the left, let's look at this. I'm looking at my thread or my chain. There it is, right? Whoops, not anymore. And if you pull it tight, you can see there's that little space. Okay. I'll pull it through. I'm going to pop it under the leather on the right side. And then I will pass it back through that same path. Sorry, my hand's in the way. Then I pop it under the leather, the needle. And we'll jump down to the next one. But you can also see how my stitches are pretty even there. So now if I'm holding this tight, I look at it and I go, yep, that's where also the needle fits through too. Okay. So there it goes, under the leather, back through that same place, go all the way back through. And the trick, whoops, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit it's getting vigorous with my needle. The trick to successful laddering with any medium is keeping everything nice and taut and straight, right? If I were just letting this chain kind of flop around like this, whoops, I hit Linda's hi to Gita. If I let it kind of sit there and try and go through, it wouldn't be as nice and even. So keep that chain, keep your fingers on the chain as well to keep it nice and tight. And you can see, so there goes that one, and then I just follow the needle, just send it right back through. It goes in and it goes out and underneath. Any thoughts on anything on the technique that you'd like to add, Janice?
I think there's a happy marriage between, and it's only doing this multiple times and not separated by a year of not doing it. But if you do this, if you do this kind of laddering a lot, you begin to understand the tension of the links on the chain. So if, for instance, you hold it, you pull that chain really taut as you're laddering, then when you go to wrap it around your wrist, the chain is pulled very tight.
Right, too tight,
So,
right.
Yeah, so it's different. It's different, as I was saying earlier, than beading. You want it still, you don't want it loose and floppy, but you don't want the metal to be pulled so tight that when you wrap it in a circle, it becomes stiff. I think mine,
Right.
if you look at it, it got a little stiffer than I
Mhm.
liked. And then the other recommendation is I wouldn't make the chain longer than
One wrap.
like one wrap or 2 wraps on your first try. Once you get used to this, and this is one of the more dense chains. If you
Mhm.
used a different kind, it's not going to have so much pressure between one link and the next.
Mhm.
This is really an intermediate laddering project. I love this chain, so when I saw it, I said, I wonder if I could ladder with that. That looks like I could ladder with it. And I had no experience laddering chain. So I didn't know to get something simpler. But I
Right.
love how it looks. And I think everyone can do it. Just don't try to make it super tight.
Yeah.
That's my recommendation.
And you can feel here,
Yeah.
if I put my fingers on it, it's it has some movement, right, to it.
Good. Yeah.
So Hale is asking, so each link gets a double stitch. So that's right. So here's the link. I came through and it goes through this link here and that link there, and then it comes out. Then I dip underneath, and then I use that thread path to guide me back home to the left-hand side. So it goes right back through those links. And so Hale, those are the same ones. And so there's a thread path going from the left to the right and back from the right to the left on this. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to keep hitting that camera. But you can see here, and the thing that you want to be aware of when you're laddering, when you're coming back on the second pass, is because we're infinity stitching with a double thread, right? With a double strand of the KO. So when I go through, the first one's easy because there's no thread in that chain, right? So I go through, I'll pass the needle under. And then when I go through, see what I automatically do here with my fingers? As I pass the thread back, I kind of grab the thread with my finger here to give that thread some tension so it pulls down to the bottom of the chain link, the bottom being underneath here. So there's room for me up at the top or over it to pass my needle back through without splitting the threads. Okay, that's something, if that's good thread management when you're laddering chain. So again, that first pass, when you do it, you just go through, right? It's no biggie like this. But when you pass it back from the right to the left, if you get a little bit of tension on that thread by grabbing it and then sailing your needle back through, it just opens up that space so it's easier.
I think you're doing a great job, Kate.
Thanks.
I'm glad you're doing it. No, I'm also just looking through some of my color books because when I talk about doing something like this, where you're combining different kinds of colors, I think it's important that you have inspiration and reference. And I think going to libraries, going to even lending libraries, you might find those little. Do you have in your neighborhood, Kate, those little
a little free library or whatever?
Yeah.
I think we do. We have one that's not too far, but I can't wait until our library has non-pandemic hours again. Burlingame Library in Burlingame, California, is one of those old-fashioned old library buildings. I think it's probably about almost 100 years old now. So it's a beauty.
Wow.
That one. Oh,
Somebody
see?
told me
So
that
I want to,
Alexandria. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to show you guys something real quick because I made a mistake. And then we'll go back to your Alexandria comment. Can you see here? I laddered over and I was so enamored with your library story, Janice, that my
Sorry.
no, not at all. It's perfect. That my needle did not go back through the correct chain link. I
Mhm.
dropped it down and I went to this one. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's not the end of the world because it's tight in there, but I will be missing, you'll see here, I'm missing a thread up here.
Mhm.
So to take it out, what I do is I open up the legs here of the leather and I very carefully, I don't go needle first, I go eye of the needle first and pull that back. Then I can pop up and go to where it goes. There you have it. We're all fixed. So you were saying, Alexandria, do you have any of those in your neighborhood?
Yeah, I had gone into an area. There are two areas that are well known in Alexandria. There's Old Town,
Mm-hmm.
which is very historical, and then there's another very artsy area called Del Rey. And I
Mm-hmm.
had read somewhere that in Del Rey area of Alexandria, that the lending libraries, those little libraries, started here.
Oh,
I don't know if it's true or not, but that was like a factoid I read somewhere.
oh,
Um,
I like that story.
maybe it's true. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but they're fun to stop and look and go, oh,
Oh, there's a book I need.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, I
get
know.
start a collection of books on color, and I will show when we're done with this. I'll show a couple of
Oh,
my favorite
you have them
books.
there? Here, I'll put
I
you
do.
up. Are you ready? Yeah, here.
Yeah,
Let me do
I'm
this
dressed.
and you're dressed. You're ready.
I'm
Perfect.
dressed.
I'm going to
Yeah.
move you right there. So you're front and center.
So this is my absolute favorite book on color. This is by Trisha Gild. She's done a number of books on color, but this one is her tour de force. And um, I'm going to say, I don't know what year. I've had this
You've
book.
had that for a
So,
while. Yeah.
yeah, this book is 1993. 1995, something like that. But let me push this one aside a minute. But she's a decorator and she's a color expert. And I'm just going to open to a couple of pages and try to show you which. So this is a
Yeah. I
section
see that.
that she has on blue. And so what I will do when I am looking for inspiration is I will open some of these pages and I will possibly focus on just a section in it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wanted, I want to get the glare off of this. So I might focus on a section like this. And when I
Mm-hmm.
do, and I will look at also the background color. We tend to go immediately to the brights and go, oh, I see green and I see lavender and I see cobalt. But then there's also, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. There's these charcoals, there's these
Right.
very like coal black colors. So when you're looking at color, look at the color that's not readily at the surface, but the deeper ones, because those will bring out the highlights. So
Right.
here's
Those are like your accent colors, sort of,
right.
right?
So here is one of her still lifes in yellow, and she has put some dark browns in there and bright greens. So this is a book I think you might be able to still get it. I'm not sure. But there are other books that are really good. And then this is sort of like my Bible book.
Yeah, that's a good
Colored.
one.
This is the one by Architectural Digest. And it's this is worth its weight in gold. And I will post this color wheel is actually in several of my handouts. You see it's such a heavy book.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to wait, this color wheel.
Yeah.
Do you see how it's so many soft, different
Yeah.
colors? I use this color wheel all the time to look at what's across from it. This was actually by Moses Harris, and this was the original color wheel that was invented in 1776. That's a great time. The natural system of colors. So I'll take a photograph of this today and put it up in the Facebook group because I think it's just, I love the way it's handwritten and the way it's so soft colors. But you can just, I'll show it again. But it's easy to say, okay, what's across from the green? What's across from the blue? I want to go with the darker. I want to go with the lighter. But it's not like these other color wheels that are just such bright primaries. This has such a feeling, an old-timey, as I say to Eli, an old-timey feeling of
Right.
color. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that might be kind of a fun exercise to do, Janice, is to maybe collage your own color wheel, to find like magazine clippings or newspaper clippings or things like that.
Good idea.
And then you can just get out the good old paint pot and just glue those images down, or you can also accentuate them with some paint or some watercolor. That way you could find, I don't know, photos. Maybe you do it in flowers or you do it in, I don't know, nature pictures or a mixture of whatever it is you like, clothing, whatever. Might be kind of a fun way to kind of get up close and personal with your color wheel. Again, like that watercolor one that Cynthia did when she was here when we talked about
Right.
color.
So here's another like abstract color wheel by an artist, Delaunay.
I like that a lot.
Not necessarily makes sense, but it's a fun way of looking at the color wheel. So just crayoning in whatever colors you feel like. But color is your friend. Color is color's the answer. I always like to tell anyone who gets stuck designing or what to do next is if you can get the color right, if it resonates with you and it feels good, then the design is going to follow.
Yeah, that's
Start
for sure.
with your color. Start with, now you may say, I want to start with my shape of my beads. That's fine too, but I will promise you, when you look at the shape of that bead, you are also taking in its color. There's it's like, unless you're doing it in like clear, you're going to,
the color is going to influence you.
Plastic. You're going to also feel the colors, of your childhood, looking back at old photographs of the bedroom or thinking about, well, how was my room decorated when I was, a child, or what color was our house and the flowers in the garden, if we had a garden, or the street scenes or the hills behind, the town, all of those things. If we can go back to our childhood, remember, like in this one, Dandelion Wishes, I have such a vivid memory of those yellow dandelions. and they just made so much sense. The gray made so much sense once I put
Mhm.
the green, the sage gray leather, that green and the green ceylon with the yellow and the gray. It made sense.
It brought it. You had a story behind it. It brought it together for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I could tell a story because it made
Yeah.
sense.
Well,
So
let me
where are you
show.
on this, Kate? Yeah.
Well, I can show you how I would end
Okay.
this guy. We're about. I'm going to switch this over. So we're here. So we are about. I'll remeasure this, and I can always end it in a little bit of a. What do I want to say?
Tiny bracelet.
Well, just so it's not a tiny bracelet, I'll be a little creative with my closure here.
Okay.
So let me see how much I've got laddered. So I'm at about 5 inches, okay? And so the bracelet for me, I'd want it to be just over 7, maybe 7 1/4 to
Mm-hmm.
7 1/2, depending on how thick we want this to be. But what we'll do, there's a couple of questions that we want to answer first. Sherry asks, do we always ladder with a doubled thread? Well, while I'm answering that, it'll give me, or if Janice, you want to answer that, it'll
Well,
give me a few more moments.
yeah, we have we're of two different minds with this. Sherry, for me, if I'm using KO, uh, I always use my KO double. But then I also, when I do my bead weaving, you and Emily use a single thread.
Mm-hmm.
I am, I'm just like, still at camp doing my bracelets when I was in camp, I guess, and I use my thread double. I just feel more secure when I use my thread double. But
Mm-hmm.
what about you?
Well, we could also do this infinity stitch. I could do it with a single strand of micro Ceylon too, probably, right? If I threaded, um, if we
Or
used
fine
like
weight,
a
if you used fine weight, you could
fine,
use it
yeah,
single. Yeah.
hmm you could do that. But for KO, for sure, if I'm doing, my favorite way to infinity stitch is a double thread like this, doubled over through the needle. That's how I like it. Now, if you're doing regular laddering, like Brittany likes to do just that, her regular traditional laddering, one thread from the right, one thread from the left. There, we would just do a uh, a single thread
Mm-hmm.
when you're doing traditional laddering rather than infinity stitch. Okay.
Right. And so it's doubled over in the center of the bead, but around
Mhm.
the leather it's single. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And we have a great project from Drea called Seashore, our Seashore project, that we're going to be doing at the beginning of March. And that's a really, we'll delve into some more lettering techniques with that one. Now let's see where we are with this. Okay, I'm going to get Sherry's comment off. And Nikki's asking about the leather. I'm using 1.5 millimeter leather here, Nikki, but you could go down to the 1 or you could go up to the 2, just depending on what you wanted to do. So we're at about 5.5 inches here. So I'm going to actually close it off, and then I could always add a little extender or add a little connection to this. So if I were ending this, and I don't know if you do this, Janice, I would stitch in place. Do you actually cut your chain before you stitch it to the end?
That isn't the big deciding factor. You could do it either way. but I would definitely take the project off the board on one
Mhm.
side and just curl it before I
Mhm.
did the reinforcing, just to make sure that the chain is able to, turn a corner, it's able to
Mhm.
move, it's as flexible as can be, it moves around a little bit. I would do
Mhm.
that just to double check. It feels
Right, just
okay?
like this.
Yeah,
And then
good.
I can take a look and I can see, okay, maybe I can get just a couple more because it'll end there. So what I'll do is I'm going to look at it, and you can see as I measured it around my wrist, you can see maybe my knot's there, maybe my loop will start about there. So I want my chain to end because I
It's
want to
pretty
macrame
good.
it.
It's pretty good because by the time your leather comes together and
Yeah,
then you macrame to close it off, you're at a fairly good length. You're almost
yeah.
there.
So see how I clipped just that one, and I'm going to take that link out. And you can see there's the little point. Those two are coming together. So I'm going to clip this one. Be very careful to cover that clip so it doesn't hit you in the head. So I'm going to put this back on the board and I'll show you how we would do this. While I'm doing that, Tammy's has a question, and Tammy, you know what? Tammy's birthday was just a few days ago. She has a Valentine's Day birthday, and I neglected to wish her a happy Valentine's birthday. So many happy belated returns of the day, Miss Tammy Del Nero. But she has a question here, and she says, "Hi, ladies. My 6 wrap bracelet using single thread is now fraying in spots. Is there a way to reinforce it without re-stringing it?" What do you think about that, JP?
Well, I don't know what the thread is, but the only thing I think that might help it would be to wax it with that. I don't
Well,
know once it's fraying.
yeah, once it's fraying, I mean, you could go back in, like let's say that this were a portion of your necklace or your bracelet here and it was fraying. You could maybe weave in some thread like way before the fray, right? Weave, 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 get to the frayed part, weave it in maybe a couple of times, and then weave past it a little bit. So if there's room, and let's say that you use, Tam, whatever you used, fine weight or medium weight, whatever it is, the thread that you could come in and reinforce it with could be thinner, right? So you could reinforce it with KO if you had Ceylon first, and you could reinforce it by infinity stitching. You could try that, right? So you don't have anything to lose really, because if it's fraying and you're like, yeah, I don't know how much longer this is going to hold,
Mhm.
there's nothing lost by just trying to go in and reinforce it with some skinny thread for sure. That would be my, um,
My guess is it's a much loved bracelet, Tammy,
yeah,
and
it just may be
it's
time.
yeah, yeah.
It may be time. So see here how I've got my little end. So I'm just going to come in and ladder these last few stitches. Now, Janice, on your piece that you did, you finished your transition was you just had a long thread and you just kept going, it looks like, right? Um,
Let me
but
look
I
at the
but I
oh,
could
on the chain?
on the chain, yeah. But since I'm finishing this with chain, I could finish it with a nice heavier macrame and
Yes.
macrame over this KO, right? Do you think that would be a good way to do it?
Well, what I did do is, and I'm looking now at the project map, is I reinforced the last link, and then I think I it's not the end of the bracelet, so I went
Right.
into another section. But what I would do if I were ending the bracelet with this is I would probably macrame, and the way I would do that is when I did the reinforced stitch in the last link of chain, I would probably cut the needle off, and then I would add another piece of KO underneath the leather, and then I would macrame with those two.
Two doubled
Yeah,
strands.
exactly. So that's probably how I would end it.
Well, let's take a look. What I'm going to do is I'm just finishing up here. You can see I've got that last doubled, and then I'm going to go through and connect, secure that last little one. I'm going to get a little closer here so you guys can see it. So this is also, since I've cut this last link, I want to make sure it's going to sit correctly. So I actually, see how the link that I cut, let me get my pin here. This pin comes really in handy. I want to make sure when I pull it, yeah. So that's going to be how it's going to sit. So I'm going to hang on to that. I'm going to go through here. And then I'm going to go down through that last chain link. And that'll be like, it reminds me of kind of like the tip of a super duo bead, right? And you don't want to get it twisted in the wrong direction. You want to make sure it's going the right direction here, because it's just that single link. It doesn't have any other supporting link to hold it in place. So we've got to get our thread through. So there it goes through once. I'll go through again. And I'm using a size 10 beading needle. That's what you use, Janice, right?
Yeah, I like
the 10.
Yeah, I really love the 10.
So there's that, and I'm going to go through there again. Okay. So now what Janice was saying, and I'll show you this. Here's my doubled thread, and I could come in and I could get another doubled thread. And I would bring that thread around the back. And then I'd macrame with these two because they'd be doubled. Okay. What you could also do, though, if this were the ending, and I think this is what I'm going to do just to show you guys something different, because you've seen me do this before, do that doubled thing before. And I've got some regular right here. It'll be easier for you guys to see it. I'm just going to use some regular Ceylon, since this is the ending section. And I'm going to get one of my favorite tools, the tiny baggie. And I'm going to clip the needle off the end of this. But I'm just going to come in from behind and macrame over all of this. Also this little piece of KO. So we'll just start with our P's and Q's. And we have a great skill builder on how to do your flat macrame knot. We want to find the center of that thread, though. That's definitely not the center. So let's pull this back just a touch. There we go. That's probably all we need. And then, but what you also did here, Janice, what I want to show, you could also, this is where you used maybe your roller bead too, right? Or your Pony Express bead or whatever. And you'd string the leather through and this strand of the KO.
Right? I also if I remember correctly, like the one I will do the most often is that I would cut the needle off the KO.
Mm-hmm.
I would tie the KO into a nice square knot
Mm-hmm.
so that the leather's together. I would put a little glue on it.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would put the KO through the bead with the big hole, the
Mm-hmm.
roller bead, and then I would start the macrame above.
On the other side of the roller.
No, I would start it on top of the KO where I knotted it,
Oh, right.
and then just bring it around the roller bead, and my
Mm-hmm.
KO would go through the roller bead, and it would just be
Mm-hmm.
inside.
Yeah, so
So
see,
I
I just
knotted it.
tied that little knot. I just tied that little knot,
Yeah,
which
why
I
not?
think was a really great tip for that. And it brings, like you say, it's bringing this leather together,
Mm-hmm.
which is good. And I want to make sure that I've got a little bit of air there. So I want to make sure that's right. So now, let me undo this. And if we were putting on that roller, let me just grab it because I have it here. This bracelet's going to end up being too big.
It's going to be 7 or 8 wraps, Kate.
So here's the roller. You can see it sneaking up. I'll put the KO through.
Yeah, why not?
And so you said you would start it there.
Yeah, I'd put a little glue on that knot.
Mm-hmm.
First, I'd put the sealon underneath so that it's underneath all of that. It's underneath where the KO knot is going to be. I'd put a little glue on that. There you go. I would pull, you could actually macrame a couple of stitches.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do actually right
so
now.
that it covers the glue, it covers the knots. My motto is when in doubt, tie a square knot.
Mm-hmm. It's a good
I just, what is it going to hurt? No one's going to see it.
Mm-mm.
And we all know it's much more secure.
There we go. And I'm going to do 2 sets just for fun.
Yeah.
Here.
Yep.
So there's one.
And you can always pull on the KO a little bit if it's.
And you can see what I've got going on here. I actually have it. I'm going to pull the camera back a little bit so you guys can see this. What's going on here is I have it clamped. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to do one more set of the square knots here. And then I'll slide that roller or whatever large hole bead you have.
Right.
And you could put your thread around it or through it. I think I'm going to go through it because I think that's what you did. So I'll go there and I'll get this one on this side.
If you're using a large hole bead and you're going through it, you just want to make sure once you do this, bring it up to those knots and make sure it doesn't slip over your macrame. If it slips over your macrame, then you want your sealon or your thread to be on the outside because then it can't move around over the knots.
Right, it'll hold it. Right.
Yeah.
So then I'll just macrame a bit more.
Yeah, and cut your KO off.
Mm-hmm. I could probably safely cut my KO now, don't you think?
Yep.
I'm going to get it a little out of frame so I can look at it and just make sure that I'm cutting it correctly. I don't want to cut anything else. There we go.
Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe here's what, do you have a big eye needle, Kate?
I was just going to say, right, because I can show pulling that back through.
Yeah.
Let me see if I've got one right here. I believe that I do, Ms. Parsons, so let me get one.
Excellent.
Let me get one here. And so what I would do when you're pulling this back through, okay? So now there's my needle, okay?
Yeah, you do
So,
it the correct. I mean, you do it the correct way.
well,
You've got
so
the
now,
needle ready to go. I forget to do that.
so if my needle is in there, I need to, as I'm making these square knots, I need to make them tight, firm, I guess is what I want to say, but not so tight that I'm not going to be able to close or to pull this needle under the knotted stitches, if that makes sense. So just bear with me here because there's a couple of tension issues and we don't want to forego technique just for the sake of this demo. So and I would do, I don't know, I should really measure this, but in my mind's eye, I'm saying I need 3. So there's
Yeah,
3 on that
three
side.
is
Whoops, and I
good.
need to make sure to go over the needle and not under it. There we go. So this will be my last stitch, 3 per side, 3 half hitches per side. There we go. Is that right? That actually is not right. There we go. That's right. There we are. So now what we'll do is we'll open this big eye needle. And if you don't have big eye needles, add them to your
Must have.
your jewelry making toolbox. Can we see that? Sorry, my thumb is in the way, but I'll move it in just a second so you'll be able to see what I'm doing. But I'm sending the thread, I'm opening that big eye. What the big eye needle is it's a needle that has a point on the top, the north and the south side. And the inside of the needle is split, which is called the big eye needle. So you can get heavy threads like this through, okay? So I also want to have a little bit of looseness here. I don't want to have it to be too tight because as you go underneath, I'm going to tighten that last little one. As you go underneath, you need a little bit of room there to pull these loops of threads underneath. So let me see if I can get it. It's a little, see how it's traveling underneath there? There it comes.
Sometimes I need a plier to help me pull
right,
it through.
to help you. So now before my little trick here, before I get too crazy and pull it all through, I'm going to have my hypo cement, and these are the tails that are going to end up under that macrame. See where I put the glue? Not here, but here and here. Okay. You don't have to glue, but if this is a bracelet that's going to get a little bit of wear and tear, see if I can get this tip back on the GS. There we go. Now, as I pull, I'm going to find the 2 that are the long tails, which are these. See that? And then these loops come through. And see where that glue just sailed through like butter. And I'll come in and I'll just make sure to kind of tamp that glue down a little bit. But that's it. And then I'll come in, you know, I could let it sit, or I can just come in and clip these edges off. So I'm going to pull it out of the frame for just a second, get that clip so I can see it. And here we have, let me lift. We'll take this off. And that's how you'd make that transition, right? If you needed to add some more KO, you could do the same thing. You'd lay your KO back here and you'd also macrame over that. So you'd have your KO with your needle coming out over here. Because look at what I've got. I've got a bunch more cord, right, to keep going because I just got a scrap out of the scrap leather bin. And so you can see here, and I had taken it off the board, so I made sure that it came around. But if this were going to be just a bracelet, a single strander, I would come in.
Perfect.
I would lay this guy right here. I'd bring it around. And yeah, it is perfect. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
And then what I would do is here I could do where my finger and thumb is pinching, I could do another macrame bit, or I could just come in. I can visualize that. I know what it looks like about right there. I could just come in. And before I tighten, I would make sure that this loop wasn't too big or too small. That looks about right there. And there's a question, what are my favorite pliers for close cutting? I like our thread snips for our thread. We carry the Xuron thread scissors. We also carry the old school thread snips, which I love. And then if I'm cutting this leather, like I'm going to do right now, I'm going to angle cut it. I'm going to come in and I will use my wire cutter. This is the Maxi Shear cutter. Sorry, I need to make sure that's that one. And then this guy comes here. I'll make them not the same length and clip just like that. Okay. So here's the laddering. You can see we can get up close and personal. You can see, I like the blue. I mean, I did it so you guys could see what the stitches were, but you can also see that you can use it as an accent. So here, there she is. Let me go down a little further here. So you can see how that chain just makes a perfect little one-off.
So Kate, it looks beautiful. There is a front side and a back side when you ladder the weed chain, and we want people to just, beaders to just be aware that when you are making a wrap, if you have a front side, oftentimes we wrap from the back, but if you want that chain to sit up, you want to turn your laddering over so you're laddering from the front. Does that make sense? It
does. It does. And I think it's also partly the way that you tension it. Like you can see how mine is looking here, and you can see on Janice's piece here how the chain is a little bit
pushed up.
It's a little higher, right? A little bit higher. And I think that's just where you catch the chain sometimes. Sometimes it just has to do with your tension. So both methods look great, I think. And so you can kind of practice to see what works. But you do want to know when you're working on this piece. Like this is definitely the top on Janice's. If I turn it over on the bottom, on the back, you can see that her laddering comes together a little bit like so.
I like yours better.
Well, I think they both look great. And I think that like on this one that you did in this color study, we've laddered two lengths together, right? Yeah. So you lay them side by side. So that can be your next challenge. But so I'll just throw that one in there. But you can, there's all kinds of ways that you can you can get that chain in there for laddering. And you can see that it just depends on where you catch it. You know, if you catch just that single loop or that doubled loop or wherever however your tension is. I was going super slowly and trying to be super methodical because I was doing this in front of 200 people. So, you know, it just depends. But again, take a look at, as Janice says, the top or the bottom piece. But it's good. It's great. And this little pop of color at the end, I like a lot.
It's a great bracelet.
And it's just our little mandala button, which I think is very pretty. It adds a lot of metal look to it. And you could see you could use the roller in place of that pony bead instead.
I think I like the roller.
I don't know. I like them both.
Yeah.
I think they both look great. Yeah. Well, let's see if there are any other questions here before we sign off. It looks like we have done pretty well.
You did great.
Well, you did too. It was a beautiful piece. Well, it was good. I'm going to take this demo cam off of highlight, and there we are. Let me get that out of the way. There we are. So fun. So thanks, JP. What an inspired project. I loved it. I loved laddering that chain there. Gave my hands a workout for sure. We're going to continue to work with chain this week. On Friday for Free Tip Friday, I'm going to finish that Twinkle Lariat that we started earlier, which will be fun. We're going to talk a little bit about chain. And then next week, I'm taking a couple of days off. So I know you guys will be okay. Dria's going to put in some Facebook Lives for you guys to watch while I am off on Wednesday and Friday. I'm taking a little bit of a toes up. Not really. I'm running around doing a whole bunch of things, but taking a little bit of time off. So there'll be no live next week or Free Tip Friday next week, but we'll be back on the first week of March. We're going to have Bead Doctor that first Friday, and we're going to start that Wednesday with Dria's Seashore project, where we continue using the super duos, which will be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for that. I also wanted to share with you guys here before I go, and I thought I had it uploaded like I was.
I'm going with you, by the way.
Where are you going? You're going with me?
You said when I go, I'm going. Well, yeah. I'm going with you. Yeah. You're not going to leave me alone.
No, I'm not. No, we're both going. But I did want to mention, you guys, make sure that you have signed up for our newsletter. Our newsletter is the way that we stay incommunicado with you guys. You take, if you had opened your newsletter today, and many of you I know have, you saw that preview of Janice's project that we did today, which was amazing. And you also saw our coupon code that we have up on the website for the remainder of February. You take 15% off of purchases of $50 or more. That's after the discount and before the shipping charges. You use the coupon code Amethyst15 at checkout, and that expires on Sunday, the 28th of February. I wanted to tell you that you can find us on our social media. You can go to Instagram, follow us at beadshop.com. You can go to our Facebook group, The Bead Table. We'd love to have you over there. You can also find our blog, also titled The Bead Table. You can catch that link through our homepage on beadshop.com, or you can just Google The Bead Table blog, and the Beadshop blog will pop right up. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube. You can subscribe at beadshop.com, and you will not miss any of our videos or presentations that we do there. Of course, I wanted to thank all of you for watching. You can find all of the information on the project and the products from today's broadcast right on our website. And again, sign up for our newsletter for all the latest discounts, giveaways, and new products that come along. So JP, thanks so much for a wonderful project. I know everyone had a good time. I had a great time. and are ready to continue. So it's great. It looks like people have wheat chain on order, and people are really excited about this. So it's great. It's great to have everybody here. So as always, you guys stay out there, stay safe. Janice had her first round of COVID vaccine. We're very excited for that. My mom and dad are completely vaccinated, so we're a little bit in a lower tier. So we're excited that when our tier comes up, I am ready to drive through and get that shot right in my arm. So
Yeah.
everybody stay safe, wash your hands, wear those masks, social distance, enjoy and be creative. And I will see you on Friday for Free Tip Friday.
Friday.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
We'll talk to you guys soon.